Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice in beautiful Encino, California. And this program is offered through KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. And I'm here along with my best friend, my business partner. What else?
What else?
What else?
We're here.
Well, we did all the above for the past 16 years.
Yep. And we've been working on this program. We're going to be talking about love. We're going to be talking about sexuality. We're going to be talking about relationships. And we are here to let you know that you actually do contain inside of you as a human being, the human being the ego, the being part of us, being the spirit or the soul. We're both, and we're born into this world as both. And to create a good relationship and to create a loving relationship, we have to favor the spirit part of us and let go of some of the ego part of us. And that's what we're here to talk about today.
Exactly. So in that line, please give us a call live at 951-922-3532. That's 951-922-3532. We'd like to know what you like about our program, what's working for you, what is not working for you. What would you like to hear about more often, and what do you think is not really, important to you? So the more information we have about what you want and what you desire to hear, the better programs we can offer to you. So we look forward to hearing from you. You can also email us. Our email is on our homepage at the radio station. You can locate that and email us your questions, or you can even, call us on our private lines if you want to. And then when you call us here online at live, this is not going to be a therapy session. It's just going to be a conversation. And we are sure that those who cannot call us are going to benefit from your questioning here. And we appreciate your contribution to our time. And we thank you for spending the next hour with us. So Dr. Jaffe, we know that we talk about something about human sexuality on Thursdays.
We do.
Right?
We do.
So for today, somebody asked me a question, which was very interesting for me. And not that I didn't know about it, but I haven't been thinking about it in such a long time, right? And then when he asked me this question, it popped, you know what? That's a good thing to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, why some men or women would like to be center of attention by other men and women, even when they are married and have children?
Yeah, well, I think I just said it. I think I said it. I said that we're born into this world as our ego and our spirit. And the ego is very powerful.
Yeah.
And the ego says it's all about me. It's all about me.
Yeah.
And other people are just filler space in the world.
Yeah.
But really, it's all about me.
Yeah.
And so people who are into have a strong, not just a strong ego, but a strong belief that that they are the center of the universe. They want that whether they're married or single.
Okay, so we're done with the show.
I'm done.
So let's go home.
Okay, sounds good. I'll go take a nap.
Well, that's your favorite thing to do.
That's one of them. Not favorite, but one of them.
One of your favorite things to do. Okay,
Yeah.
So, well, that's on the surface. I mean, it is about ego. I don't disagree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then we need to look at how the ego plays out here.
Mm-hmm.
What comes with the ego, right? And say, okay, so my ego is I want to be the center of attention. My ego is I want to be the prettiest woman in the crowd. My ego tells me I want to get all the attentions. My ego tells me A and B and C and D and etc. and etc. and etc.
I'm the most valuable.
I'm the most valuable, right? But that's one aspect of it.
Okay.
Right. There are other things, right? And when I did some search to see if I can come up with some of the answers, right? So one of the things that said, a married woman would want attention from other men for the same reason that a married man wants attention from the other woman.
Okay.
Right? So it's not that men want more attention versus women, or women want more attention versus men, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on where they are in their mental state, where they are as a view of selfhood and everything else that we're going to be discussing. They find themselves in a crowd that gives them actually that kind of a feeding that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So usually if a woman is a center of attention in a group, it's because the other people allows that woman to be the center of attention.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So it's sort of like our program on Fridays when we talk about codependency.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they find a crowd, and that's the subject of our Unconscious runs the show.
Okay.
Right. So that the mental connections happens, and women find themselves in the crowd where they get what they want. Same thing with men.
So you're saying that they subconsciously seek out other people who will defer to them.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if people don't defer to that kind of an approach and desire and mentality, a group won't happen, and then nobody's a center of attention of anybody.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. People who attach themselves to other people who and the person that they attach themselves to has a big ego. One word that's not a very kind word is a sycophant.
Mm-hmm.
A sycophant, somebody who attaches themselves to someone and draws their sustenance from the other person's glory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I think about what you just said, I have seen those groups.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I have been a part of it myself, but I have seen it. I have sensed that, and for whatever reason, I can say I could never connect to that kind of a participation and communication.
Yeah. Well, your mentality isn't there.
Right. But I have seen that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We see that among children.
Mm-hmm.
We see that in teen years in particular.
Right.
And definitely if that behavior and attitude is not examined, it will continue into adulthood.
Yes. And so my thought about what you're talking about is that a lot of that has to do with emotional immaturity, that the person believes that they are the center of the world and that everything revolves around them. We do go through that as children. I mean, it's a normal phase of human development where the child is the star, and that's okay when you're 2, 3, 4 years old. But when you're 20, 30, 40 years old and you still need to be the star, then I think it's my mother used to say a case of arrested development, where the person gets stuck early on in childhood, and as a result, they feel like they still need those things like children need them.
Right. And then we see that sometimes, when people want to be the center of attention in such a crowd, they come up with codependent phrases, codependent attitude, sort of putting others on the pedestal so that they can get some attention for themselves as well, right? So that pairing up happens by one up, one down, hierarchy within a relationship.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Sort of Lord of the Flies. Right. Somebody has to be the top dog.
Right.
And then everybody else has to revolve around them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so, as a matter of fact, I attended a very private memorial service last night. And I was trying to keep my distance. Not that I tried, I actually did it. And I was wearing my mask and everything. And thankfully that service was outdoor, so I didn't have to worry about anything else. And because I was sitting in the far corner, I could look at the crowd, and that's what I usually do, right? So I could see how this dynamic actually was happening, between people. So it was interesting to see it, in a very end part of adulthood. Most people who were there, they were above 60 years old, except for some grandkids, but majority were, my age and above. So I could see that play out there as well.
Yeah.
But what I have, in my notes is that it might be that a spouse is particularly inattentive to his or her spouse.
Okay.
Right? So inattentiveness of the spouse also can create something like this.
Meaning that the spouse is that isn't being given what he or she needs in terms of authentic attention, but also authentic interest.
Right.
That the spouse isn't really that interested in the other spouse, or doesn't appear to be, and so the other spouse feels deprived and hungry for that.
We're writing this ebook, Not Tonight, Honey, I Have a Headache, right? And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about elements and ideas and concepts and situations that reduces, intimacy between couples and how to improve that, right? One thing that, we haven't not done is that if there is a situation like this, in our scenarios, right? And I don't know if you want to do that or not. I'm just saying that. However, I can see maybe, depending on who the person or the individual is, one of the spouses, doesn't matter which one, depending on their inner need and, emotional state and what's really, important for them emotionally, that they can actually, if they don't get the attention and intimacy at home, they may seek it from somewhere else.
I understand. Yeah, and if they seek it from somewhere else, then that affects, of course, not only the relationship but the intimacy that they're capable of having together, and of course, if they have children, then they're modeling that lack of intimacy for the children.
Yeah.
Right. So they actually going off course in terms of what they want to show to their children and in terms of what they really would like in their own relationship.
Exactly. It's sort of like, okay, I tried, I did it, I'm giving up, now I'm going to the next phase.
Yeah.
Right?
So people, they remain married legally married and maybe even living together, but they're not spiritually married. They're not intimate with each other. And I'm not talking about not that they may be sexual with each other, but sex can be done both intimately and non-intimately.
30 seconds.
And oftentimes that's what happens is if one partner feels like they're not getting enough in the relationship, they may still continue to have sex, but it's not going to be as fulfilling for either of them.
Exactly. So it will be kind of mechanical, goal-oriented sex. Just have sex, let's have orgasm, and we're done with.
Yeah.
So more of this after our commercial break. We just got the note on that, so we'll see you in 3 minutes.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here, and we're talking about some, in couples, they want to seek attention outside their marriage when they are in different locations, and we want to see what are the root causes of that and what can be done for it. Please call us at 951-922-3532. Let us know if you have a shared experience in that area, or if you have witnessed somebody who's been doing that. That would be interesting to see what was the reactions around that individual, right?
Absolutely.
So you can also, visit us at our YouTube, Heart-2-Heart.online/YouTube, and we look forward to hearing from you. So we talked about, some aspect of it. One of the other things that I've been told that it might be that most of the sparks have left the, marriage, and the person feels excitement, in getting attention of other members of the opposite sex.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course the question arises, why is that, right?
Yeah.
Why have the sparks gone? And people often, I think the main thing that I want to say about when we work with couples, and the main problem that both you and I see, and probably a lot of other couples therapists see, is when people come in, they point to each other.
Oh my goodness.
And they say, well, if
it's a battleground.
if he didn't, or every time he does this, da 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 da, or well, she never, or she does this, and so the fingers are pointed towards each other, and as long as that happens, the therapist is then put in a position of a referee. And if the therapist is a good therapist, the therapist says, I don't want to be a referee. I want to help you guys to make your relationship better. And you've been blaming each other for I don't know how long, it may be a month, it may be 20 years, maybe longer. And how's that working for you? Right? How's that working for you? Blaming each other.
Yeah.
So then what happens is the therapist, you or I, have to help the person to take a look at what their part is, right? What their participation is in why things aren't working and why the sparks may have gone.
Exactly. I like the phrase that you have been using, and you have also told me that phrase, and I used it with my couples. So when they are here, in particular at the beginning and initial stage of therapy, my God, this finger pointing together is like they are ready to punch each other, in front of me, and they want me to side with them. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. Not you're right.
Right.
And so one of the first thing I tell them, after I see that, I ask them to stop. And I tell them, they have been doing this for all this time and they haven't gotten anywhere, and that's why they're here. So if they want to continue that way and believing that I'm going to be favoring one versus the other one, so that's not going to work. And I also say this specifically to them, that they're rather to be right than connect with each other.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And that kind of stops them and say, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Say,
Yeah.
And then I said, the reality is in couples that each one of them comes to the relationship with a history that they have.
Mm-hmm.
None of that, attitude and the blaming and finger pointing and the fighting and the argument was caused as a result of marriage. Okay.
Correct.
It's because this is how they have learned to communicate,
mm-hmm.
right? So they need to look at, couple therapy, in my opinion, is a combination of individual therapy, family therapy, and then couple therapy.
Right.
Right now. And so every one of them need to take a look at, agree to, and understand too, that they need to take a look at their own history.
Yeah.
And how they have shaped their beliefs about themselves.
And so when you say family therapy, I think both, in other words, they're doing family therapy because they're the leaders of their particular family.
Exactly.
However, they're also doing family therapy as in family of origin.
Yes.
Therapy.
Right.
Meaning, wait a second, how were you brought up? What
right.
did you learn about relationships and
right.
about how to connect? And what did you learn that you're doing in from what you learned as a child watching your parents? What did you learn that worked, and what did you learn that didn't work? Yeah. Because none of that may have ever been examined, so that they may be still copying a lot of the things that they saw without realizing that there may be a better way.
Well, most of the time, that's the case, actually. Those behaviors that they have, none of them have been examined. They never thought there is something wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I have a couple that I work with, excuse my voice. And so the lady says that she always, for as far back, she thinks she has to be the perfect daughter for her mother.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that she was done needed to be just perfect and perfect and perfect. But then again, she realized that she was never good enough for her mother,
mm-hmm.
right? So exactly, she brings that attitude into her marriage, right? And the husband, on the other side, he also feels that he's not good enough because his role model was his powerful father,
uh-huh.
right? And how he was famous in the community, and how he was great, and how he was, the trustworthy person that everybody went to for advice and all of that. So he has assumed that he needs to be at that level based on his explanation of what that level means to him, and therefore he doesn't feel himself to be good enough. So now imagine we have two not good enough, individuals in a relationship called marriage, and now this is the place where their controlling factor comes up. Now here, I want to be good enough, and the other one says, now I want to be good enough.
Right.
And guess what
Right.
happens? None of them are good enough at the end of the battle.
Right.
Right.
And what I want to say about that is that the book that we're writing, the name of which is The Subconscious Runs the Show, people don't really understand what that means.
Right.
And so what I want to say about it is that the subconscious is the family of origin stuff that people don't think really matters in their day-to-day relationships and experiences. But what we learn as children is so powerful because we don't have our left brain, which is our analytical brain, available to figure stuff out, to really think about things.
Until like about 5.
Well, at 5 it begins,
Yeah,
but it doesn't really develop all the way through the 20s. It's still developing.
Right.
And so that part of our brain is not being can't be utilized in order to understand really what's going on. So what we do is we absorb with our feeling brain, the right side of the brain, exactly what the messages are, and the messages come in terms of facial expression and body language, voice tone, and of course the words that people are choosing. Those messages are so powerful, and because we absorb them and it bypasses the left brain, we just take it in as truth.
Right.
And so then later on, when we're ready for relationships, that stuff begins to kick in, and we follow the leader, which was our parents, or we say to ourselves, oh, I didn't like the way they did it, I'm going to be different, and so then we do the opposite.
Yes.
And either following their lead or doing the opposite is still not them. It's not their authentic true self. It's the reaction to them. It's either being compliant or defiant.
Exactly. Yes. So we see, I mean, these are all also related to ego functioning.
Correct.
Like you said at the beginning, and I want to point that out as well. And then another reason is, it might be that the individual was, exceptionally, having some emotional needs and felt the need for attention from other besides his or her own spouse. So there are situations where the individuals are living together, they have sex, they look fine, they on the surface everything's fine, but then again we see that this type of individuals, whether male or female, they want the attention from outside still.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
even though everything seems fine.
Well,
right?
Seems fine is pejorative,
yeah.
Right? It's judgmental. Who does it seem fine to? And oftentimes we judge other people looking at them from the outside in, and we never really know what goes on behind closed doors. So things may look idyllic, to other people, and yet we wouldn't trade places with them for anything when we really understand what's really happening inside of their own psyche and between them when the door closes.
Exactly. And I have seen actually excuse my voice, I don't know what's going on today.
You need a drink.
I probably need some drink. I don't have COVID, that's for sure.
Uh-oh.
I've been talking.
You're in COVID denial.
I'm in COVID. Do I have temperature? I don't. I'm in COVID denial. So I've been talking all day today since 8 o'clock. I've been nonstop. I've been talking. So
even before you got here, you were talking to yourself.
Exactly. I was hallucinating.
Okay.
And with my delusional perspective, I was responding to my hallucination, right?
Oh, uh-huh.
Another minute, you're going to admit me to the psych hospital.
Okay, all right. I'll count down 60, 59, 58.
So, I mean, I have witnessed myself that in particular, um, in gatherings where there is room to show off,
Mm-hmm.
right? That one or two, male or female, they make themselves center of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Men go by talking about their overachievements, by the size of their muscles,
Mm-hmm.
by the quality of their, belongings, like they shake their watch, or they show their brand of their jacket, or they make sure everybody sees the brand at the bottom of their shoes by the way they're sitting, or they brag about this sports car that they have, or the sports activity that they have, or how fantastic their business runs, and then, or how many girlfriends they have had, or even how many times they can have sex per day, right? So or how much money they make, and then they are men that they just look at them and they say, oh my God, that's the life I wanted to have.
Of course.
How could I? And then they look at their very narrow muscles, they look at their very skinny body, and then they just bald hair maybe, and then they just kind of go under the table and they just sweat, and they just look at this individual like this is the God right here, right?
Yeah. Well.
And then for women, the more jewelry, the more makeup, the more fit body, the more high heel shoe, the more, body exposure, and the more sweet talk, and
Well, wait a second. And the less wrinkles.
And the less wrinkles.
The less wrinkles.
The less wrinkles, right?
Yeah.
And the more bright and white teeth, and more hair, and in particular jewelries, and then what kind of a gift they receive on Valentine's Day, or what kind of a vacation they went for winter vacation, or what kind of a yacht they rented for summer vacation.
Mm-hmm.
They just keep talking and keep bragging and keep talking, and then the same thing happens to other women.
Mm-hmm. And you've seen a lot of that.
And I have seen a lot of that.
Yes.
Honestly, I never paid attention to the sexual aspect of it, right, before. But once, I learned more about human sexuality, that's more, it got my attention more so and more so, right? And so these things happen. They do happen. People outside, even within marriage, they look for outside attention.
And so what, if anything, is wrong with that from your point of view?
From a clinical perspective, I see that they have emotional needs that they have not been dealt with. Right? And I mean, for each case is different. I can't really say that there is one specific one size fit all kind of a diagnosis or situation for all of them. Each person is different. They got to that point from because of different life experiences, but ultimately they are needs that they have not been met.
So you what you're saying then is they're trying to meet emotional needs through
external,
things that are external to them, such as wealth and property, and beauty.
Right, which is I am what I own, I am what I look like.
Yeah.
I am what people say about me. I am what I own.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And we actually have article about this, you and I, which is listed on YouTube.
Yep.
And people can download that if they want.
Yes.
And then, but that's part of it. And then the part that usually people don't want to look at is their sexuality and how their sexuality plays a major role here. So men go for their masculinity and power, and women use their beauty and all of that sense of kind of become provocative in action, right, to get the attention that
sexually
they want.
Appealing.
Yeah.
So women get power from being sexually appealing.
Right. And they sometimes not only they want the attention from same sex group, but they do it in a way that they get the attention of the opposite group.
The opposite sex.
The opposite sex. Yes, suddenly you see that the female is sitting in a crowd, and then there are 4 or 5 or 6 gentlemen who are also married.
Yeah.
They just come to that and they say, what an intelligent woman.
And she probably hasn't said she's probably said all of these compliments to them, which make them feel more powerful.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wish there were more of you around, huh? Or
so
my husband will never say these things. Oh my gosh, how did you notice that? And I've been living with this guy for 10 years and I have never heard of a word like that.
Yes. So what we're really saying then is in a relationship, the more you are involved in promoting your ego, the less you are interested in connecting with other people. Right. Everything else becomes more important.
Right, exactly. So we just got the notice of our commercial break, and then we're going to continue with this, I think, cute discussion after our commercial break.
We are looking forward to you guys returning, and stay with us.
All right. Welcome back from our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart-to-Heart at KMET 1490 ABC News Radio. We're talking about seeking attention among the spouses outside marriage. And we see that there are reports that that's happening more often. And of course, with the pandemic, we see that that's happening online virtually too. So that's the interesting part, that people try to maintain connection with each other, but they do that virtually, and somehow virtually gives them more attention. So that's a very interesting part of that. And then one other thing that came to my attention was the group of people who actually do that, both male and female. They actually like the drama that happens as a result of this for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like a man will see, he's a provocative woman, wife among the crowd, and he, gets some jealousy going on, or vice versa, right? And then when they come home, they kind of get into the fight and they try to win each other back. And then there you go, and then they accuse each other that you're trying to make me, get jealous and all of that. No, you just got jealous on your own. I didn't do anything, But they actually like that. The fact that you got me jealous, that's what they want to hear.
And do you know why?
No, I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Well, my idea is because what we talked about, what we've been talking about this program, the ego and the spirit, the ego gets a jolt of adrenaline and other chemicals that whenever we feel like we've won, right? But it also gets a jolt anytime that something emotional is happening. So we create the emotional states in order to get that feeling of, wow. It's exciting for us, and it's much like gambling. When we gamble, and let's say we're gambling and we're playing craps, right? And we throw the dice and we come up with a 7. I win, and that part of it is the ego releasing the chemicals in our body so that we get that jolt of adrenaline and other chemicals. And however, what people don't recognize, maybe some do, but is that when you throw it and it comes up snake eyes, I lost.
It's the same thing.
And you get the same jolt.
Right.
And that's why the addictive quality, because you're getting those jolts. It's the same thing in relationships. If you make somebody jealous and you can have a big fight over it, you get that jolt of energy that's running through your body. And oftentimes people will consciously, and often subconsciously as well, but consciously pick a fight so that they can feel that energy, that excitement that goes through them. And then afterwards they will have great makeup sex, because that energy is still flowing through them. And it's like, okay, I'm sorry, I love you, and then they have great makeup sex.
So the same concept applies here.
The same concept,
exactly.
Yes.
But that makes sense. Yes, I didn't look at it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, well, okay, well, great, right. And then, the other part is that some individuals, both male and female, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just cannot handle or accept positive feelings for themselves. And they just need to hear it from other people.
Mm.
And even that sometimes doesn't sink, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they need to repeat that. So the more attention and the more admiration, the more positive attitude, the more good comments they receive, they feel better about themselves at the moment only, right? And then once that setup is over, then they go back to their own feeling not good enough or not feeling good about themselves.
Right.
So they go back to the same cycle of repeating it, that, I need to hear so and so telling me how good I am. I mean, they don't know they're doing this, but that's what the subconscious mind is saying, that people have to say you're good so that you feel good about yourself.
And there have been studies done about parents giving positive messages to their children versus critical messages. And the studies that have been done, I don't have the stats at the tip of my at the tip of my finger, but what they found was that the negative messages that children get in terms of what they shouldn't be doing, how they shouldn't be behaving, versus the positive messages are like it's several hundred times to one. It's like it's outlandish how many negative messages we get, and the negative messages are very, very powerful. So we grow up internalizing these negative messages, and so we give ourselves negative messages, we give our partners negative messages, and then we can't understand why we're not getting along and why the passion has diminished.
Exactly. And then the other part that I think is very deserves a significant attention is that married couples sometimes they feel trapped in that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And if they feel trapped, like they that that's it for them for the rest of their lives, they're not getting the attention, they don't have the spark, they don't have intimacy. So by seeking attention from outside, it's like they're getting a mental freedom at the moment.
Right.
As though, oh, I still in the market, oh, I'm still looking good, or I'm still can get attention.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not all done with,
Right.
So that's the part that's really, becomes significant in many of these relationships. So they keep the relationship, but that's a moment of attention that they receive gives them the assurance that, oh yeah, I'm still good. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
good. So
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes them feel good, they go for more of it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and I also want to add, I think that's absolutely true. And what we want to do is we want to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes we choose the way to feel good, even though it may not be the healthiest way to feel good, as in all addictions, right? Addictions are a way of making you feel good, usually euphoric for a period of time, but then they bring you up, but then they also bring you down. Plus, they keep you from finding other ways of feeling good that don't have the negative effects that most addictions have.
Exactly. I have a couple right now that the husband says that I take weed because it makes me feel good and it also increases my sex drive.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes he smokes less, sometimes he smokes more,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he doesn't want to look at the fact that he may actually have an addiction to that.
Right.
And like you said, at the moment it will make you feel good and all of that. But then again, there's a down point part to it, which makes you repeat the cycle of smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you go down, what do you want to do? You want to feel good, so you go back to it again.
Right.
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 So it's that ego that doesn't allow us to look at ourselves and to examine what's going on with ourselves, because it becomes part of our unconscious so that it feels normal.
Right. The ego doesn't relate to other people from a position of I'm the same as you,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm as good as you, or you're as good as me. The ego relates to other people from a position of I'm better than you or I'm less than you. And and the reason that the ego does that is because our egos are interested in physical survival. And now that we're living in a society where physical survival is usually not, for most people, a day-to-day struggle, the ego expands itself into what we would call emotional survival,
Right.
meaning that I have to be right and I have to win, because that feels to the ego as though it's a life and death struggle. How dare you say I'm wrong about that? And it doesn't matter what we're talking about. You know, it could be something very, very some. I know a couple that had a big fight over whether something was recyclable or not, and which trash can to go to put it in.
Yes.
See,
Yes.
and of
Yeah.
course they both recognized that what they were fighting about wasn't really what they were fighting about, but they didn't know how to get to the bottom of it.
And then the need to be right here, is, to me, again, going back to, earlier talk, that the need to be right versus the need to connect or wanting to connect with each other, which completely, shadows understanding each other.
Right.
And knowing and understanding and learning about what's going on with each and every one of us in this relationship that makes us fight like this together, right? And what makes us seek attention from the outside our relationship, people, and get attention from them for our satisfaction, right? I mean, that is such a profound emotional need to get attention and to feel satisfied with that attention, and even be happy just for receiving that moment, in moments, the small moments.
Right. Right.
Right.
We know, of course, that people who have been serial killers, do so a lot of times, and not because of this, but they're doing this in a way of trying to say, I'm important. You see, you're not going to ignore me anymore, world. I'm here now to stay.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
and you see how powerful that desire to be seen is. Even, and of course I'm not suggesting that people want, who want to be seen are going to be serial killers. What I'm saying is it's a very powerful need, for us to be seen and understood and appreciated. And when we don't get that as children, we do look for other ways of filling that need. And a lot of that has to do with what you've been talking about today, looking to outside ourselves for that kind of satisfaction.
Yeah. So to me, to wrap up all of this, to me, that's the same as smoking weed so I can feel good about myself. Because it doesn't matter if I'm looking for a substance, a situation, a word, a phrase of something that gives me, happiness, gives me satisfaction about myself, gives me good feeling about myself, then that's the same as any other addiction.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, it can be. Yeah. And of course, some addictions are worse than others.
Right.
I mean, I would say that gambling addiction can be very, very detrimental to you. Marijuana addiction may not be as detrimental as maybe alcohol addiction,
Right.
or other kinds of drugs addiction. But all addictions serve to give you a temporary feeling of a high feeling, and give you relief from any kind of emotional turmoil that you're in. But any addiction that you use never gives you release from it.
Exactly.
So you keep going up and down, as you were saying earlier.
Right. I mean, to me, it's not the substance, the type of substance that one, or the type of category of happiness that somebody uses to achieve joy that he or she is looking for. To me, it is the belief behind it, that why do I need to look outside of myself for happiness? Right. Yeah. That's the area that I like to bring to my clients' attention, that it doesn't matter it's heroin, it doesn't matter it's or weed, or it's
or food,
or sex, or being in the middle of the crowd and be the center of attention, right? It's not that secondary, right? But the belief is that, it's the attitude that makes me do that.
And the attitude is there's something missing.
There's something
missing.
Right.
Or there's something that I'm feeling that I can't quite put my finger on, but I know it's not good.
Yes.
And I need to do something about it.
Right.
And so then people look for things, and attention is one of the things.
Right.
Being the star of the party, attention from the opposite sex. And then, of course, all the addictions.
Right. So we see that those who are seeking attention as a relief and as a finding joy for themselves, we see that this attention seeking increases the next time they can be more provocative or more masculine. They can show off that they are more richer now than the time before. That now they have less wrinkle, like you said, than the time before. So it keeps adding and adding and adding. And that's the same way that with one joint of wheat, the next time you need 2, the next time you need 3, the next time you need more, right?
Right.
So because every time we get something, but we don't resolve the underlying issue, the need becomes more.
The need is always going to be there, and the need doesn't go away. Although we do get relief from it for moments when we do our addiction.
For a moment, like you said.
Yes, for a moment. And so I think it's really it's good that we've had this discussion, and we're talking today about the ego and the spirit.
Right.
And the spirit is that part of us which values love and connection and kindness above winning and material possessions.
Exactly. So our time is up. I hope that you enjoyed this program, and please let us know, call us, email us, and I'd like to invite you to join us tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for another episode about relationship, addictions, trauma, and codependency. And don't forget, following week at Thursdays at the same time, 3 p.m., another episode of Human Sexuality. Until then, don't forget that all you need is love.
Love, love, love.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
The preceding was a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
KMET, Banning, Beaumont.